Okay, I'm going to be going live right now. I'm going live. Today's date is the 20, or excuse me, it's July the 8th, 2025. It's a Tuesday, and it's about 9:58 p.m. Eastern time. And I put in the here a shout out to Marshall Brockway. Now, Marshall Brockway, I'm only putting this out there with the hope that maybe you'll Google your name and you'll find this video, because I saw some of your material the other day. You said you're 32 years old. I've been in this community a lot longer than you have. I do have your thing here. I think this is it right here. Marshall Brockway is the name of your channel, and you have it at Marshall Brockway, all one word. And anyways, I want to talk to you real quick about this true force loneliness, or this problem you're having with the women issue. And you spent a lot of time talking about this women issue, and I've just watched a couple of your videos. I don't have time to watch every single one of them, but I'm working and I'm trying to concentrate on the road sometimes. But one of the things I want to tell you something, because when you're in your 30s, I'm trying to put a timeline. If you're in your early 30s, you were still around in the late 90s. You were probably born in 1993, 94, 92 maybe. This dating problem is not something new. And I want to tell you this, I'm 54 years old, and I've been on this internet for a long time, but I don't really do much TFL. TFL was a term coined by Bill Greathouse, stands for True Force Loneliness, which is the precursor to the stupid term they created called incel, which I hate using that term. But I'm going to say it to you in a nutshell what the problem is. Number one, men are giving up on women, but that's not going to affect anything in your favor. And the reason why is I'm the only guy on the internet talking about this issue. It's the demographics. And I don't know if you know this or not, but men vastly outnumber women in the dating pool, in the marriage pool. Men are probably, I believe it's 5-1, but let's just say conservatively it's 3-1. And I say conservatively, meaning I don't think there are any less than 3 single men for every single woman. And this includes divorced men, men that have triple, double dipped into the dating pool. There was a lady named Sherry Cooper that 24 years ago, she was on NPR, and she predicted that by the year 2010, which we're already 15 years into 2010, she said that by 2010, because of the changing of the demographics, that we would have twice as many men as women competing. And the trend would be that younger men would be willing to settle for older women. And she's on point. She's an economist. And what we're dealing with is a supply and demand issue. And it doesn't matter how much men ignore women. It would never, you've always got this group of guys called bottom feeders, and they represent a sizable portion of men. I'm not saying they're 50%, but let's say hypothetically that men stop talking to women, or they stop using the online personals. There's always these bottom feeders that'll jump right back in and say, oh, time to get in, time to get in, time to get in. It's a really bad situation right now for men today. And I don't think, and like my friend Mitchell said, and he's even older than I am, he said years ago, he told me back in 2012, when I had interviewed him, in fact, it was around Christmas time that year, he said that more than likely this problem won't be resolved in our lifetime. It will not be resolved in our lifetime, because it's something that is being dealt by through simple supply and demand. So supply and demand is basically the fact that when something is in high supply, there's going to be a lower demand for it. Generally speaking, like salt is in high supply, salt's also in high demand, but men are not in high demand. And they're just, this is a problem that's not going away in your lifetime. Now, there's all kind of alternatives to this. You can go overseas, but you have to be willing to live overseas. This is the big thing. If you're going to go find a woman in Russia, or you're going to find a woman in Philippines, you're going to find a woman in Bangladesh, you're going to have to plan on living in those countries, because you're going to be back to square one if you bring her here, because there's just too many men competing, and we can go into all the reasons for this. The first reason is there's no wars anymore. I can get into four different reasons why what's causing this problem. Number one reason is there's not enough wars. And you'll notice that in our grandparents and great grandparents in their generation, it was always the sexual revolution of the 1920s, the post World War I generation, and then which led into eventually World War II, post World War II. That whole thing was preceded by the deaths of millions and millions of European men and American men, mostly white men. Okay. And so you had this huge population of men dying. And then, of course, you have this crazy sexual, of course, it kind of juxtaposed itself with the prohibition of the 1920s too. But if you ever see those old movies from 1920s, you can probably Google them. You can find them on YouTube. They'll show the Roaring '20s, and the sexuality was just through the roof because it all had to do with the fact that there were not enough men to fill this void. And I believe that the norm, at least in the last 1,000 years in European history, has been excess men have always been the problem. It's never been where there were tons of women and not enough men. Excess men have always been the problem. And as a way to break that chain, they would send them to war, send them overseas, send them to outposts somewhere. This was done organically, maybe not on a conscious level, but certainly on an unconscious level. I believe that even Abraham Lincoln saw the writing on the wall when he initiated the Civil War. I mean, maybe that was really initiated by the fact that Lincoln, being the dominator that he was, he knew that we couldn't have all these excess males, and what better thing to do is send them to war. And this is my whole theory behind it, because I think that the excess male problem has always been a major, major problem. I think that this ultimately is what has been the crux of everything. Okay, so I'll get into this. First thing is that we don't have enough wars killing people, so therefore men just don't die anymore. And on top of that, I think the mortality rate of women in the 1600s was much worse. I mean, I think women died. Women have gynecological problems. They had problems with their breast cancer. I think women died. I think the death rate of women was higher, in addition to there being more men then. And I think that caused lots of social ramifications, which are not talked about. Now, I'll get into the second reason why we have a problem. We already said the war issue is one of them. The second issue that Sherry Cooper talked about was the double, triple, quadruple dipping that baby boomers did, men particularly, after during like the sexual revolution of the 60s and 70s, particularly the 80s, when a lot of these boomer men got rid of their wife after 5-10 years of marriage. They dipped into a much younger pool of women, and as they kept dipping into this pool, it drained the women that my generation would have had as potential wives, because by I think the early 90s, probably around the time you were born, I thought, hey, there's going to be, life's going to be pretty consistent with the way it was back in the 70s or whatever. And it wound up being that it wasn't like that at all. It was like we had this thing back in the 90s called Ladies Night, and every bar, every club would advertise Ladies Night. And I'm like, this is stupid. Like, why are they doing this? Well, all it would do is attract men. It was like a sausage fest. I mean, that's where the term came from. And like, you'd go to a bar, Starlighters Bar and Grill or whatever, and they'd say it's Ladies Night tonight, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, whatever. And it was always mostly dudes. And I'm like, what is going on here? And I thought, and I experienced this throughout the whole 90s, and I noticed that was kind of like that. So that was a second reason. Number one, the boomer men, they dipped into this very shrinking pool. And because my generation, Gen X, I was born in 1970, because we were a smaller generation, they really sucked a lot out of the life of that generation. The men did. The economy was so bad for my generation that you could not get a very good job. And so if you're a woman in your early mid 20s and you see some late 30s boomer, and he's got a good job, and maybe he's a salesman, maybe he's got one of those highfalutin insurance jobs in the 80s, you're going to jump for that guy. You're going to say, okay, I got a guy that's going to take care of me. and he's 15, 16 years older than me, but he's divorced and got 2 kids, but I'm going to marry him. And this happened all the time. These boomer guys are still dipping into the pool. Okay, we get on to the next issue. The next issue is unlimited immigration. This is insanity off the Richter scale. You guys see this all the time. You have this unlimited immigration over you have this like H-1B1 visas are the big one. Canada, you got an excess of 1 million Indian men in the last couple of years. You got men from China, Africa coming to America, H-1B1 visas. They come here, they want to stay, and it's usually dudes. And then you bring all these excess males in, and then you think about the other men, the men over the border. Now, these guys are just trying to find a job and get out there and work for a living, and they're trying to find work and feed their family. But it's still excess men. I don't care whether white women or black women want to date these excess men from south of the border. There's still excess men, and it floods the market with excess competition. Then you get into the men that were brought over here from Afghanistan. I mean, they brought 150,000 excess men over here when the Taliban won. They just brought them over here. I mean, all these excess men. There's several of them in the Cleveland area. They just bring these men over here. They sometimes eventually bring women over, but it's mostly men. So you flood the market with excess immigrant men. You have men that are not dying in wars. You have baby boomers that are still triple, quadruple, quintuple dipping into this ever shrinking pool, and you have a recipe for disaster. There's a fourth element to this too. I mentioned, there aren't enough wars to kill these men. There's just, and then I'd say the last thing, and it's kind of a result of all this dysfunction, is the social ramifications of what this causes, which is feminism, which is hyper-feminism, bad attitudes, and then you've got a form of prostitution. It's kind of just getting to the point now where everything is just getting, it's just getting really, really bad here. So anyways, I've talked about those issues. I like your channel. I think you've got some ideas, but I think you're hyper sexed. I mean, I'm just going to be honest about it. And I think that you've got to you need to understand that this problem will not be resolved in our lifetime. I know it's a bad, other than traveling to a foreign country and being willing to maybe do different things. And a lot of guys, by the way, have done this. People your age. Actually, there was one guy 10 years ago. He was in his mid-20s, around your age. And he did just that. He moved to, I think, Thailand, and he married a woman or something. And you got to be willing to do things that are going to increase your odds of finding one good woman. And I don't think you're going to find it talking about it and fantasizing that women are giving up and crying. This is just anecdotal at best. Most women don't even care that men are not talking to them. Okay, you're just seeing hypothetical videos of a handful of women that represent 0.1% of the population that are complaining that they can't find a man. It's a very small percentage of women complaining about this. You just happen to see the women who are complaining about this issue. Men are not giving up on women, and women certainly are not complaining on a large scale that there aren't enough men out there. It's just this nonsense. This is just living in an echo chamber called YouTube. And I maintain strongly that the issue we're dealing with is demographics. I will not vacillate from this. I have been talking about this for the last 10 years. I wish I would have known. I was farting around with the stupid looks issue. Oh, it's the jawline. I looked at you. You're really not bad. Your looks are pretty normal. I mean, you don't have like an elongated mid face. You don't have a crooked eye socket. You don't have a cleft palate or anything like that. You don't have anything that would make you super unattractive. So that's all I'm going to say for now. I don't want to spend 2 hours doing on this. So you let me know what you think, and you have a great day.